Hi, Scorpio. This is your reading for this week, the week of October 20th, or when you hear it and it resonates. And again, Scorpio, sun, moon, rising, or a lot of Scorpio in your chart. Won't be for everybody. Scorpio, I see something interesting, and I started seeing it yesterday for you. And it was you with a suitcase, and you taking things in and out. And it's an open there, and you're putting something in, and then you're deciding whether or not you want it, and then you're taking it out. But what's interesting as I'm focusing on this is you're not loading the suitcase up and then taking out what you don't want. You're looking at every item individually. You're putting it in. Does it belong in that suitcase? Regardless of what else is in there, does that belong in the suitcase? Do you want to take it with you? And it's interesting. I'm seeing it actually as specifically a metal piece of machinery, small, but something that moves, something that like a mechanism. So as I'm focusing on that, what I'm being told is this has to do with the word. Okay, what an old-fashioned word. Interesting. Cogitation. It has to do with cogitation and with what you're going to let yourself continue to focus on or not focus on. Now, the interesting thing about this is you're encouraged to bring this mechanism with you, but only if you bring with it a magnifying glass. So what does that mean? A magnifying glass? I want to say not a telescope. Something that you use in a lab. Oh my God, what is that? A microscope. But you don't need a microscope, they're saying. What you're needing is something where you can actually step back and look at it from afar, but not too far away. It's close so you can watch it, and then you can see what happens with it, where you want to go. It's interesting because everything else in your suitcase is empty. I mean, there's nothing else in your suitcase. It's empty. It's just this mechanism, and I'm going to call it a mind mechanism, with your magnifying glass. So what I'm being told here with this is the idea is you're creating space. Oh, I love this. You're creating space around whatever old stories you had, whatever mind mechanisms that you had that were related to pain. Now, I'm getting pain in two ways. One, the nobility of suffering. And two, the idea that you can just go, sometimes you Scorpios, you have got so much energy and determination to get things done that it's almost as though you're on rocket fuel and you get it done and you don't realize until after it's done what the cost has been to you physically, emotionally, energetically. And so what you're being told here is, now, thank you. Before I go on with the cards specifically, they're reminding me of a phrase that they gave me just before I sat down here. And it was, whereas before you might have said, you might have questioned yourself, well, why would I do that? The question that you should be asking yourself now, where they're encouraging, is why not? So you see the difference in the energy is before you used to have a reason to do something, and it was usually doing something to get something accomplished, to reach an end goal. Now it would be more the idea of, do you want to take a day trip and just, do nothing productive for the day? Instead of saying, well, why would I do that? Question yourself and say, why not? You might still decide it's a no, but the whole idea is the inquiry is more open to a possibility of something different than well, why would I do that? Immediately when you think of it that way, there's a kind of a wall. So it's now asking questions with a curious investigative quality about tendencies towards cogitation and the idea of pain around that. What are the issues of pain around that for you? And where has that been a part of your mind mechanism? Now, I feel like they want me to explain a little bit of what I mean by mind mechanism. And while I think there are probably different ways to describe it, and you may already have your own definition because it's got a feeling quality to it, but it's basically the way your mind works around something. So, for example, it might be a habit that you have where when somebody suggests something, that you do something or that you go somewhere, your first reaction might always be no. That's kind of like a mechanism. A mechanism is something to me that is almost like a pre-programmed routine. So the same way you would set a clock, the same way that you would, or the old clocks, where they have gears and gears and all the things that a clock has, springs, that they're always going to work within a certain relationship to each other, right? That's what I mean by a mechanism. The way that your brain now has learned how to respond to a particular kind of situation in exactly the same way again. So we could look at this in terms of neuroplasticity, building neurons, pattern neurons in the brain, the ability to change that by being able to, and I believe that is a physiological representation of what I'm talking about. It's that it plays out in a kind of predetermined pattern of thought, which then creates a certain outcome. So again, the kind of thing where, somebody needs something, you're the first person to offer. You hear that somebody's in need and your first instinct is to go, I can fill that gap. Okay, so that's also can be a mind mechanism. So what you're doing by looking at this mechanism, by not surrounding this particular mechanism with a whole bunch of extraneous stuff like clothes, in your suitcase, for example, is you're being able to stand back and look at it and really understand this process, Scorpio. Understand this, as this is the next step, or a key step in you developing your sense of faith, because faith is an inward journey. So until you can step back and you can look at those mechanisms that come into play around certain situations, it's difficult to be self-aware, right? When we become self-aware, then we notice those mechanisms. And once we've identified them, they're easy to notice when they come in because they have a feeling quality. They're usually associated with certain kinds of triggers. And so by doing that, then we're able to notice them and able to make other choices around that. And what you're being told here is you're being asked to discipline yourself, but discipline yourself in a way where you are really embracing the energy of setting up some kind of program, ritual, intention that really supports you in being able to move inward, understand the mechanisms, and then and get out of the kind of cogitation that kept you locked in the problem, with a new attitude of why not, with a new attitude of experimenting with different ways of applying your thought process to things. And that's key. That's where you find the solution. You have to be willing to do that, and you have to understand. Well, you have to understand. It serves you to understand that when you are looking at a situation with the intention of solution as opposed to problem, as when you look at it with a why not as opposed to a why, then what you're doing is you're just kind of opening up to all sorts of possibilities for intuition to come in, for guidance, for synchronicities. And what it does is it helps you stay out of two things. It helps you stay out of the need to attack as a preventative against being attacked. And it allows you also to understand your ability to The attack card is an interesting card because the thing is, so often I feel like what this is really talking about, more than about other people, it's about you attacking yourself or not attacking yourself. And that sounds really harsh, but the thing is, we often do have a lot of really harsh thoughts in our head. And unless we're mindful of what it is we're saying to ourselves, the options we're giving ourselves, the ability that we are giving ourselves to be solution oriented, the opportunity we're giving ourselves to say, why not? That gets us out of that sense of quiet, critical judgment of ourselves, which is another form of attack. And I feel, Scorpio, that's particularly important for you. And that, again, now you get the discipline card again. So this is really about you I want to start with a slightly different phrase than what I'm getting here. It's about you being able to see that deliberately changing the way you think about things is what determines what you carry with you. And that it is, while they want you to have some kind of discipline around, and this is important, while they would like you to have some kind of discipline around maintaining that kind of energy, that kind of concept of why not and solution. They want you also to be willing to experiment, because you can be very, very clear cut in some of the ways you decide you want to do things. So while they would like you to be mindful of maintaining some kind of deliberate intention to support yourself in good ways and to support this new way of thinking or this more expanded way of thinking, they also don't want you to be rigid about it. They want you to experiment and have fun. That's part of the reason why your suitcase is empty, is because by being able to understand how the mechanisms of your mind work and stay aware of it, you get to put all new things into your suitcase. You don't have to carry the stuff from the past. And that's what's really important. I feel, Scorpio, as though you are entering into a cycle, or you've already been in a cycle, a big cycle of expansion, like mind-blowing expansion, over the last few years. But I feel like this is, or I should say, and this is, I feel, the acceleration of a cycle, or a cycle a level up. This is a journey towards a part of you that is deeply connected to an inner sense of faith. This is you getting to know yourself in a different way that is so much kinder to yourself, so much nicer to yourself. And as you are doing that, as you are nicer to yourself, as you do all the things they've been talking about, this is where you start attracting even more and more niceness towards you. Whatever chaos might be around you, whatever chaos, what may be around you, not even necessarily you specifically, but situations that you are part of that are becoming chaotic, as many things are right now, is that just maintain your focus. What do you want? How do you want to feel? What do you want to be? And it might be, I want to be aware of my mind mechanisms so they don't get in the way of my happy life. It might be, I am choosing to experience my sense of strength. And I'm choosing to now be able to see the world as a safe place where it's completely supportive. This is what I'm choosing. Okay. So it's not just choosing things, it's choosing ways of thinking, ways of experiencing yourself in the world. These are all key. So no more pain, no more internal attacks on yourself. Stay aligned with the incredible energy that chaos brings, and the world is in chaos, so there's a lot of energy to harvest. It's up to you to siphon it into the vision that you wish for, and you'll be able to do that more and more the more you are able to be aware of what your mechanisms are, but that's what you're in the process of. This is a powerful time for you, Scorpio, in terms of evolving your sense of faith and connection to that sacred part of yourself. This is a big, beautiful cycle for you. Oh, I wish I hadn't just said those words. Big, beautiful, but you know what I mean. Okay. Take care, my dears.